Olá a todos. Para quem ainda não sabe, esta sessão vai ser em inglês. And Mauricio is going to present it. It's about a topic that has been very important to me today. I've been debugging streaming all morning. This presentation is about debugging, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, welcome, Mauricio, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry for being seated, but I will actually do a live demo, so I actually need to be seated. My name is Mauricio Dinarte. My pronouns are he and him, and I go by Dinarte online. I speak English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese to different extent of proficiency. So if you speak any of those languages, you can talk to me, but I might not be able to reply in the same language. That being said, my email, mauricio@agari.com. I mostly do Drupal, but I also do WordPress and React, and I am a senior software engineer at Agari. I am from Nicaragua, beautiful, hot, warm country known as the land of lake and volcanoes, and that is one that you can go to the crater, look down, and watch a lava lake if you are into that. As I said, I work with a company called Agari. It's based in Boston, but they are distributed, and there are also people here in Europe, including in Germany. I also am very passionate about teaching, and in this website, understanddrupal.com, I try to write in multiple languages, mostly about Drupal migrations. And in fact, I wrote a book about that a few years ago, and I am writing a second book at the moment on upgrading from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10. Actually, the demos that I will be using today mostly revolve around migrations because that is what I do literally every day for the past 7 years, but the techniques can be used in general. So let's get started. Is it possible to have 0 bugs? Yes, it's possible. If you don't write any code, you will not have any bugs. So, but let's say that we really want to write code, and why do we even want to debug it? For one, to fix issues, that is the most common reason, but one that I find myself very often is actually I step debug through Drupal. It can be the Migrate API or some other API, and I do that in order to understand how the application works. So debugging can also be a tool to understand how your system works. And some of the techniques that I will be demoing, for please, if possible, use a proper debugger like Xdebug. Most of the examples at the beginning are going to be using this. If not possible or not available, you can also leverage some IDE features or command line features. This will, you will need, to have some knowledge of the application for this to work, but I'm going to demonstrate it. Also, take a peek at the Drupal database, and at the very end, blow up everything, at least temporarily, with a good old die function, just verifying that you are hitting the sequence of the code, a bunch of the code that you are thinking. So, with that being said, let's switch to the examples. So the demo is a Drupal 7 to a Drupal 10 migration. We have a content type for events, and we have a field to store the website URL. But for some reason, the information is not coming through. The very first thing that in my debugging process is, do we have data for this node in Drupal 7? So I check the same node in Drupal 7, and yes, we have data. So I'm going to save some steps and go directly to the part in which we start debugging with Xdebug. I am using DDEP under the hood, and DDEP makes it very, very easy to configure Xdebug. You literally just ask for it, DDEP Xdebug on. In my IDE, I have it enabled, like the listener, and that's it. I am ready to start debugging my code. Because I know this is a migration, the place that I most of the time put a breakpoint, this is telling the application, stop here. I want to inspect everything at this point. Is in a class called migrate executable in an import method and in this specific line. How you get to this point, again, like with experience, you get to a point to identify, oh, this code is being executed here in this class, in this file. So let's start here. And you with experience and with time, you are going to start refining the process and being able to pinpoint the specific locations that you want to that will give you the more information. So in this case, I am going to roll back my migration and to make this bigger. When I connected the HDMI, it changed my font size. So I'm going to migrate again. And what does having a real debugger gives you? For one, you can see the whole stack trace. So up to this point, every function call that has happened in the whole application, you are going to be able to see it and also explore some of the variables in each of those steps. For the current one, where I have the breakpoint, you can run code, like evaluate code like this, and in the place where I have my migration, I don't have a lot of things that I can get information from this variable. But for example, if I am in a hook in which I have a node object, I can call methods directly on the node object from this interface. But again, like, because this is a migration and in the context of a migration, I know that in this specific point, I have a row object with a source. So maybe even though the Drupal 7 node has the data, it is not being fetched by the migrate API. So I want to verify if I'm getting some information, some data. So in row source, I get all the information that Drupal is pulling from Drupal 7. Drupal 10 is pulling from Drupal 7. And I have a field website, and it looks like there is something in there. And yes, I have information. So for one, I confirm using this approach that I have data to work with. Now, maybe that data is not being put into Drupal 10. So in the I have a destination variable, and let's look for field website, and it seems that it is there. But even though it is there, my data is not coming through. At this point, as I said before, I already like went over multiple steps, if you will, in my debugging process, just to keep the presentation short. But other things that I would verify are the names of the fields. Do they match what Drupal 7 uses and what Drupal 10 uses? So in Drupal 7, the field is called field website. In Drupal 10, the field is also called field website. So maybe there is a problem with my mapping in my migration itself. So this is the file for the migration. And the way that I am doing the mapping is just like a verbatim copy. Whatever was in Drupal 7, put it in Drupal 10. But maybe that is not how things work. And this is where, again, like you can apply multiple different techniques. I'm going to show a couple. For one, let's go back to Drupal 7 for a little bit. That field in Drupal 7 was an URL field. So if I go to url.module, and this is where using your IDE can help, there is, one moment. Oh, sorry, it's not Philip, it's best now. So in Drupal 7, fields are defined in different hooks, and for ultimately the migrate API, what it does is it gets data from the database in Drupal 7 and put it in the database in Drupal 10. So understanding how the structure of the fields work in Drupal 7 is useful. So in this field, we have a column called value, a column called title, and a column called attributes. And this is what we saw in the debugger. So at least we are on the right track. But is it the same in Drupal 10? And in Drupal 10, again, like using features from your debugger, I know that this is a linked field. Any field that is provided by Drupal core follows a pattern that is like the name of the field and the word item at the end. So and those are defined in a class. So I can look for a class called link item, and yes, indeed, it is a field type. And if I look at the schema, I have a URI property, a title property, and an options property. So they don't match. They do not match. Like in Drupal 7, it is value, title, attributes. In Drupal 10, it is URI, title, and options. So because of this mismatch, my mapping in my migration is not correct. So by understanding this, now I can come here and say for my URI, I want to get the value, and for the title, it is the same. I clear my caches for updating the migration. Revert. I am going quick here because this is migrate API stuff. This is not about debugging. If I, oops, well, I didn't remove my debugger there. But now if I refresh my site, I should have data. And indeed, I have the data. So again, like what I'm doing here, I am, for one, using the debugger to verify that I am getting the data that I'm supposed to, that I am putting it in Drupal 10, but the problem was that the structure that I was putting into Drupal 10 was not correct. So again, like by having some understanding of the system, I can verify what is coming from Drupal 7, what is expected in Drupal 8, and and do that. So another way, if you are not familiar with where this field is coming from, is inspecting the database. So the same structure, if I go to my Drupal 7 site, I mean, this is so small. If I go to my Drupal 7 site, so I can say describe field, this is Drupal 7, field data, field website. And I can see that, again, this is understanding a little bit how the system works. The same three things that we saw in the schema from Drupal 7, value, title, attributes, those are the same things that you are going to see in the table that defines the storage information for the field. They are going to be prefixed by the field name, like the machine name of the field, and then value, titles, and attributes. And if you go to Drupal 10, again, like some familiarity is necessary. Let me clear this. Describe in Drupal 10 the pattern is different. It is called node underscore underscore and then field field. Basically the same idea. The machine name of the field underscore and then the three components: URI, titles, and options. So either by having an understanding of the code or by having an understanding of the database, we get to the same conclusion. We were doing a mapping, but what in Drupal 7 was called value, in Drupal 10 it's called URI. And then title was the same, title and title was the same. In this case, I am ignoring options because I didn't have any information there. But again, like that's another thing to do. Now, while doing this, let me, just this we got working already. But let's say that I want to know, there somewhere in my code base there is a plugin called Tag1 D7 node. Where is this coming from? I can do a full search in my whole application, and this is where the information is coming from. Sometimes, like I do this, like I don't know the patterns, I don't know the classes or how they are defined, so I will just like look for the specific strings and try to see where they are coming from. And I know for a fact that all these plugins, they are defined like this. ID equals double quotes and then the name of the plugin. So that's one way to find it. When you are looking for errors that you see in the console, you need to be mindful that sometimes those errors under the hood might contain placeholders. For example, I have one that I encountered in a migration project recently. It read like updating an existing node entity revision while changing the revision ID is not supported. So like I try to follow the same approach. Like I copy the error message, try to look for it, but it is nowhere to be found. Again, because sometimes there will be placeholders. In this case, what I would do is like start just removing some words to see if I find something else. And yes, I find something else. And One is in a class and another one is in a test. So let's start with the class. In here, I can see the placeholder. The placeholder is the entity type. So is it a node, is it a block, or is it a menu item, something else? But the point is, like, I am trying to understand where the error is coming from. In this case, I only found two places. One was real code, to put it that way, and the other one was a test. So for sure, I know that it is coming from here. And then I can, put my debugger or at least skin this function to understand, why this error is being thrown. And if I am using, again, a proper debugger, I can, in addition, well, in this case, I am not triggering the error, but like I could go into the function, like into this is new revision, get revision ID, and so on, like get into each of those functions and see what is happening under the hood, and then see which of the conditions ultimately will trigger the error. And again, this is going to help you understand what's going on. But I got a bonus. I also got a test. So sometimes tests are very good source of documentation to understand why something fails. In this case, the test creates. Oh, sorry, it didn't go to the test. This is the test. Yes. So they create an entity, they save the entity, and after saving the entity, they try to change the revision ID and save again. And then you get the error. In this case, the test is very simple to some extent. There is only like two assertions basically, and one is for the error message that we are looking for. But again, it is good enough for what I am doing. Like just by looking for a superstring of my error message, I was able to two things. One, find where the code where the error is being thrown, and two, identify a test method that gives me some context or clue as to why this is happening. So again, like that's another thing. Some of these techniques about searching your whole code base, I am using IDE, and this is basically for free and granted in any modern IDE. But if we were to switch to the command line, you can use grep, for example, to grab your whole code base for some specific parents. And sometimes, the terminal is maybe more efficient or more powerful. For example, the other day I was looking for recipes, a new concept in Drupal 10.3 and onwards. And I know for a fact that all recipes require a recipe.yaml file. So if I look for files, recipe.yaml, well, yeah, there are a lot. And they are all here. But like if I just want like a quick list of all of them and I didn't find this place in particular, maybe for some reason I think that they are in another location, I can go to my terminal and use a command called, one moment, yeah, so find web type f recipe.yml, and that's why I have it here. This is the command that I was supposed to run. Oh yeah, name. I forgot the name. Never mind. Yeah, it's not my first slide demo. You can see, huh? So with this, I can see all the places by running one command that will have this recipe YAML file. And because this is my terminal, I can type stuff. For example, grep -b fixture to remove the recipes that are bound to test, and then I can sort these alphabetically to make it easy to read. And basically, that's another way to find, in this case, recipes that are available in Drupal core. Or, the same logic, the same applies for identifying, other sorts of issues. I normally would do this if I am looking for plugin implementations, because those things follow a specific pattern in the name. I can do that here. And the last demo that I want to do is just like blow up my website. For that, I am going to go to this node, and I'm going to say die bump. And let's see if we can crash the application on purpose. If I go to my node, it looks like I did it. The context of this is I didn't have a better example, so I'm just going to blow my website because it is a good idea. But the point that I want to make here is sometimes when you are looking for an error, you can see that the same error message appears in multiple locations, and you don't know which of those locations is actually the one triggering the error that you are seeing at the moment. So you can put different letters or different emojis temporarily to see which code, which branch of the code execution you hit, and once you are there, you can start going backwards, and from there why did I ended up here? And I guess after removing this, if I am correct, this is going to, and for the most part, it worked. So if you want to know more about debugging migrations, I gave a presentation, not specifically about debugging, but about these things that you should understand, both from Drupal 7 and Drupal 10, to be able to do the analysis that I did in the previous example, and the video recording is available there. And I just want to finish with a quote. A great way to learn something is finding a working example and breaking it on purpose. And if you haven't heard about this because this is my own quote that I just gave to you, Drupal Day Aveiro. So thank you very much. Let's debug all the things.